Guess what? I have another cross versus battle for y'all today. So Merry Christmas. You can thank some people on fucking TikTok for this. I seen somebody's video and I was like, okay, I'll make a video about it then too. And like how I do it, with the green angel power scaling and all that shit, right? So we have in this video, we got Gray versus Hiei. Gray from Fairy Tale versus Hiei. Um, both verses are like similar in power. I do give the edge to like Fairy Tale, but remember also, Gray is not one of those, like he is in Fairy Tale, but like out of the S class or like people who you could consider S class rank, he is not like Loxus or Urza. He still hasn't even gotten to that point. Like every time I see Gray, I see that like he's like still not there yet. And then when it comes to Hiei is, fucking, boss. He's top 10 in his verse, for sure. I already made that video for you guys. So we have these two going out at two scenarios. In the first scenario, they're in the fairy tale world. We'll just have them fighting in, Magnolia, just like yesterday, right? With those two. Physical strength goes to Hiei. I just think out of those two, he's physically more strong. Like physical strength, he can lift more, he can strike. His strikes hit harder. Um, Gray ain't weak, compared to Hiei. Like it's not a mass. It's not one of these things where one of them is. This is an actual cross versus battle. Like they would actually make each other sweat. Um, Now Hiei might have an advantage, and we know who Hiei is. People who watch the show, due to like attributes like elemental attributes and shit. But even then, we saw Gray fight against Natsu, and I don't know, Natsu versus Hiei. I do lean more towards Natsu on that, for sure. But speed definitely goes to like, oh shit, brother. Like Gray's not a guy who, is known for his speed feats. He's not like that, we never seen Gray get on the move like that. If anything, he's getting attacked by somebody who's fast and quick like that. And then he's forced to put up his defenses and shit. We'll give Hiei the speed. And actually, what? I'm gonna give Gray the durability. And why am I gonna give Gray the durability? Some people might be like, why would you do that? Gray fought against Natsu on many occasions, and Natsu, we know who Natsu is, and now we do know Natsu to be holding back too, because he still sees Gray as a friend, even though he pisses him off, and they're like elements or opposition to one another, right? He's not ever trying to kill Gray. He's just trying to like get him off of his dick, if you know what I mean. And that's all he's trying to do, in those situations. Hiei, on the other hand, is gonna be doing some damage to him, but I think that Gray could also like do some damage to Hiei. See, he's a fighter, right? So I don't see him as durable. I see him as, in the next category is endurance. I got Hiei with endurance. I think he's the one who can like carry the fight on longer than Mr. Gray, Fullbuster. Gray, I believe he's one of those people who, man, he fights hard in the beginning, but then his shit starts to like taper off. He like never, I can't think of a fight in Fairy Tail where he was in a long fight and he was like, the one like he was like, I'm, gonna win. He's like still on the back foot, not sure if he's gonna win or not. I got the intelligence going to Hiei though. Hiei in a fight, he's pretty intelligent. Gray's not stupid, but he's not the best in like that way. He's smarter than Natsu, and so is Hiei. See Hiei and Gray are smarter than their main characters, but it's like like these guys are not. Um, man, they're not smarter than, you know, other people. I would never give these guys grades in that department. And I hope nobody else does either. Like I would never say Gray's a, like ultimate, like he's a tactician, he's a technical guy, he uses his brain a lot. No. And definitely, he ain't know these guys are, execute plans, but he executes a plan, he fucking executes a plan, and he don't tell nobody about it. And then Gray is like, he adapts to situations or tries to, um, but I still give it to Hiei in the intelligence. So experience goes to Gray. Now, why am I going to give it to Gray? Gray gets the experience, guys, because we've seen him in more fights. He fought against Ultir. He fought against, he helped fight against Hades. He fought against Sugar Boy and Edalus. He fought against um, Racer. You know, now he had help in those fights, but still, he was still there for those. He fought against who else did he fight against? He fought against Neville from the Alvarez Empire, and he fought against his father, Silver Fullbuster, as well. That's how he gained the Ice Devil Slaying Magic. Um, but close skills, I also give it to Gray. He's decent. We've seen him fight against Yusuke, but typically he uses a sword, and he also uses like that sword, right? And then he also um, man, he uses fire attacks that are like they're ranged attacks, right? We'll give range skills to EA though. Like I said, he has a sword, and then he also has the Fist of the Mortal Flame. He has, Sword of the Darkness Flame, Dragon of the Darkness Flame, range. Gray has range moves too, but his trump his, fire over ice. Right? Come on now. Hey, even if he's putting out that fucking ice devil flame magic, it's not enough. You know. Um, but it's a closer fight than if he was fighting against Natsu, if you know what I mean. Um, High or Recoup goes to Hiei. I give Recoup to Hiei because I know when Hiei like gets injured and then he comes back, he's like ready to go. Whereas Gray, if he's like injured and then he has to fight again, he's kind of like, you know, not as effective. That's why I give it to Hiei on that one. And then for hacks, I got Hiei winning that. Like he has the Dragon where he can summon the Darkness Flame. He can use the Darkness Flame. He can power himself with the Darkness Flame, so he can actually go in and close skills and do shit to Gray Fullbuster if he wants to, or he can play the range game with him. He has different ways to fuck around with him. He has his sword that he can use. He has all kinds of things at his disposal. As far as Gray goes, he only has Ice Make Magic, and then he will definitely have to pull out the Ice Devil Slaying Magic. And that will do a little bit of damage to EA. Don't get fucked up. Like so, he fought against uh uh Shiryu of the Blue Dragon, right? He was weak as fuck though, right? And then Toya, Toya was another ice apparition. He would have dealt with Toya as well. I say all this to say that Gray is gonna definitely I'd say he'd beat those guys, and they're demons and other things, but like he is an ice or not ice demon, he's a fire demon, born of those kind of people, but born with the element in opposition to his own people. So um environment will go to Gray though in this verse because like now Gray's in the fairy tale world, they're fighting in Magnolia, so he has the advantage. We'll give this fight to Hiei though, high diff, you know and the only reason Gray's in this fight too is because he has fucking the ice double slaying magic, the double slaying magic being the like part that helps him out in this fight because TA is a demon, so it should do some damage, but he won't be sweating that shit. And even if it's in his world, so scenario two, strength goes to EA. If anything, he's gonna fight harder, hit harder, and everything because it's his world and he's fighting for it. Speed definitely goes to Hiei. I wouldn't say that Gray is there in speed, brother. Like, Gray. Like when I look at Gray for what's I don't see him as fast at all. Like I can't think of a time where he was any quick, but Hiei always, always fast. During the dark tournament, he killed McIntyre before he even knew what the fuck was going on. Durability, I got Gray winning that for he fights against fire users sometimes, and he's still like there and shit. So that's why I give it to him. Endurance though, like in the long game, I think he can win the drawn out fight against uh, Gray. Intelligence, I'm giving that to EA, by a slight margin, slight, but it's also debatable. If you think Gray's smarter, that's fine. Um, Experience goes to Gray only because he's fought more people than EA has. Um, Close skills go to Gray as well. He is decent at close skills, but Gray is also a close quarter kind of guy. Usually when he beats people, he's up close and personal with them. Um, we got range skills. We got Hiei with the range skills, right? You know that Dragon of the Darkness Flame. When that shit finally comes out, like Gray gets hit by that, he's like fuck. Even if he's still standing and shit, he's still gonna be like ran through by a blade or something like that. Recoup goes to Hiei, and then hacks also go to Hiei. Dragon of the Darkness Flame. Same shit from the other scenario. Now this is in like the living world in Yu Yu Hakusho. They're gonna fuck shit up during their fight, and because it's in Yu Yu Hakusho, the environment goes to Hiei, and then we got Hiei winning. You know, uh, 7-4. Hiei wins that. So in both scenarios, Hiei beats him high diff, high difficulty. Gray's not one to take shit, and just let it happen to him. He's fought against Natsu, and Natsu's like one of those guys who uses fire. And I would put Natsu over Hiei. However, I don't have Hiei over Gray Full Buster. This is a high diff fight in either verse. Um, and yeah, that's what my take is on that fight. But be cool calling the corner. I'll have some more in the future. And Merry Christmas to you guys too. So have a good one and be cool calling the corner.